Heralded by this television advertisement, the Bulgarian government has finally launched its mass privatisation programme, years behind the rest of the former Soviet bloc. More than 1,000 state companies are to be transferred to the private sector through distribution of vouchers to the population, followed by the setting up of investment funds that are supposed to attract real money as well and bid for the firms in auctions. But thanks to political muddle and bureaucratic obstruction, it's all been a long time coming. Outside the central post office in Sofia, there's a lottery ticket stall. It's a good pitch, with thousands of people going in and out every day. But inside, a much more important lottery is underway. These people are buying vouchers for Bulgaria's mass privatisation. Every Bulgarian is entitled to buy a stake in the country's free market future for around $7, or a mere fifth of that for pensioners. What makes it a lottery is the almost total lack of information about the balance sheets of those companies and the apparent lack of concern by the authorities about where the money is going to come from to modernise them if they're ever to make any profits.
Actually, in the beginning, I would say that foreign capital will have the main say, and later on, hopefully, Bulgarian capital will also come into the scene.
This is one of the just over 1,000 companies on the mass privatisation list. Sofia Plast, on the outskirts of the Bulgarian capital, turns out plastic cups, yoghurt pots, buckets and so forth. But on the day we filmed there, many of the production lines were idle for lack of orders. If factories like this are going to re-equip to win new markets, they'll need an injection of capital from some real cash investors. But so far, the Bulgarian stock exchange is virtually non-existent. Ordinary Bulgarians who want to take part in the mass privatisation have until the 8th of April to buy their vouchers. Then there will be a period during which they can either put them into one of the new investment funds or transfer them to someone else to deal on their behalf, or wait to invest them directly in one of the companies. What they can't do is sell them, which means there's no chance of a grey market building up that might have increased confidence. Bulgaria's mass privatisation is an attempt to make up for lost time after falling far behind the other countries of Central and Eastern Europe in making the transition from a communist command economy to a free market system. The problem seems to be, though, that although the vouchers will transfer the ownership of more than 1,000 companies from the state to private hands, there seems to be little thought of the provision to be made for the capitalisation of those companies, which badly need restructuring and modernisation. But out in the real Bulgaria, in the villages and small towns away from the fashion for westernisation and wheeling-dealing whiz-kids, the message frankly isn't getting through. Most people complain they aren't being properly informed about what mass privatisation means, and very few have actually taken up the vouchers.
I know that we will be given privatisation vouchers. However, it seems we can't do much with them. We have to give them to somebody somewhere, but we don't know who. We also know that enterprises will be bought for vouchers by privatisation funds. But vouchers are not money, they're just paper. And you can't buy a company with paper. Somebody is going to have to put in money as well. But who? I tell you, it's like waiting for a letter from a dead man.
Among working people, there's a deep suspicion of the whole process. A lot of them think it's just another way for corrupt politicians to get them to hand over their money. In a village in western Bulgaria, we found a man who gave up his job as a military aircraft mechanic because inflation was destroying his wages and bought 2 lorries and 2 tractors that he now rents out as a private business. His reaction to mass privatisation was typical.
Now we're talking about big companies, you know, plants, factories. They're worth lots of money, billions. The people taking part in mass privatisation won't be from the working class like us. They'll be from upper classes. We're ordinary, simple workers. We haven't got much money. The government's trying to mislead us.
Which goes to show there's nothing like the common sense of the ordinary man in the street for putting his finger on the nub of a problem. The former communists who are back in power in Parliament are presiding over privatisation without enthusiasm, and that's resulted in confusion and distrust among the public. But those in charge of promoting the mass privatisation say foreigners also have to bear some of the blame.
C'est-à-dire les premières expériences, c'était les premiers étrangers qui étaient venus ici tout de suite après
The first experience people had was of foreigners coming here immediately after the democratic changes to invest and do business. But they weren't the best of the West European countries. Rather, they were people who wanted to make a quick profit and get out. Also, the mass privatisation process has been tried once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. And when people are told for the 4th time something's starting, the 5th time they don't believe it.
Unless the government can persuade those ordinary simple workers that mass privatisation isn't a confidence trick, it's hard to see how popular capitalism stands a chance of putting down roots. The investment funds will be starting to advertise soon, and the European Union's economic gurus in Sofia are putting their faith in that to persuade more people to buy the vouchers. But if that doesn't work, Bulgaria's socialist government may find itself landed with the biggest privatisation flop in Eastern Europe. Not that there haven't been a few successful foreign investments. This concrete building block factory just outside Sofia was bought out by the German company Etong. They've invested about $8 million, changed the management structure and tried to introduce German working practices. Their local manager says, thanks to that, they've not only been able to keep on all the 100 workers, but they've now got real jobs instead of subsidised ones. It's a signpost to what's going to be needed on a much larger scale if the mass privatisation is to succeed, because there isn't sufficient venture capital inside Bulgaria to modernise more than 1,000 large companies.
We are forced to use as much as possible foreign investments, and I'm sure it has to be a primary target of our government, of our parliament, even of our whole society, to make the climate for foreign investors. Of course, it is much more desirable they to be real strategic investors, to invest in this country.
That may not prove so easy. While Hungary has pulled in about $10 billion in foreign investment, Bulgaria has attracted a mere $500 million. Most foreign investors are put off by the delaying tactics of bureaucrats and worries about the country's own version of the Russian mafia. Quite apart from the threat of extortion, reinforced by the occasional bomb explosion, there's the problem of finding out whether your intended local partners have mafia links themselves. If the government fails to address those problems, the outlook for the climate for foreign investment looks as chilly as Bulgaria's Balkan winter.